Alrighty guys, so in today's video, I wanted to touch on something that I haven't really talked about here on the channel before. Now, as you guys know, for those who've been on my channel, we talk a lot about video and visuals. Like for example, we've talked about a ton of different cameras like the Canon R5C, Sony FX3, Lumix S5 IIX, Canon C80, Canon C400. So we've definitely covered quite a few cameras here on the channel. But the one thing that we don't really cover is audio. Now, personally for me, when it comes to the microphones that I have, between the C400 and the C80, my main microphone is the MKH416. C80, typically the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus if I'm just vlogging or kind of just going out and about. And for my Sony FX3 and my Lumix S5 IIX, I do have the Sennheiser MKII 400. So definitely quite a few different microphones. Those are the ones that I typically use. But when it comes to my audio, not only do I have these microphones, but I do have some wireless options as well, especially with some lavalier microphones if we are filming way out and away and we don't necessarily have access to typically just use a shotgun microphone or a boom microphone. That is where we do have my wireless lavalier mics. These are the Rode Wireless Pro, some of the best microphones that you can get from Rode right now. It does come with two microphones and a receiver transmitter, so pretty much it's a great all-in-one solution if you want to have two microphones connected together and transfer to a receiver. So definitely really great for that. So when it comes to your audio, definitely you want to make sure that you invest in something that's great for quality and for creatives. These are all microphones that I highly recommend. However, in today's video, we're not necessarily going to be covering microphones or cameras, but today we are talking about something that is extremely crucial in the editing process, which are in fact headphones. So personally for me, I think on my channel, I've only talked about the Sony 1000XM4s. Now, when it comes to headphones, especially for creatives and for those working in the industry, there are typically two types of headphones. There are open back headphones and closed back headphones. Now, when it comes to closed back headphones, typically you want to use closed back headphones when you're recording and mixing, because that way you don't have any audio that's leaking out of the headphones and everything is there and you can hear it nice and tight. When it comes to open back headphones, usually you use that for mixing and mastering. So typically for an open back headphone, you want something with good soundstage, something that sounds like you're actually listening from studio monitors, but obviously maybe you're not in a room that is treated for studio monitors, or you just don't have a place that's big enough for studio monitors and you want a good set of headphones that can kind of mimic what a studio monitor can do. That's where good open back headphones come into play. So definitely investing in a good set of headphones is crucial. Now, as a current USC film student, when it comes to my STEM professors, the headphone that they typically recommend students to pick up is actually something that is an industry standard, something that they continuously use in the industry, and is actually quite affordable. And for those that are in the audio industry or just audiophiles, you probably already know the headphone that I'm talking about. But when it comes to what the school recommends for mixing and mastering, it is in fact the Sony MDR-7506. Now, these headphones have been a staple for over the past 2 decades. Like literally so many producers have used these headphones to mix their audio, and for good reason. They have a very flat sound profile, which means that they're great for studio monitoring. Like literally it says studio monitoring on the top of the headband. So obviously geared for people that are mixing their tapes, but it's also great for recording because they are a closed back headphone, so you're not going to be getting any audio leak out of the headphones. And also they are extremely affordable. I mean, you can find these as cheap as like $70 to $80. Personally, I did purchase them around $90 to $100, so that's pretty much the new price that they go for. Now, personally for me, before I got my hands on the MDR-7506, I did quite a bit of some research to find one of the best headphones that I can get for editing, specifically since I don't necessarily find myself in the recording booth that much. So I was definitely looking more towards open back headphones, and the headphones that I landed on that I got were the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro Mark IIs. Now, these ones are fairly new, but after doing a lot more research on the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pros, I did hear that the biggest issue that a lot of people have with these headphones is that the treble is really clipped. Like honestly, like the highs are just like extremely bright and they can kind of clip a lot of the times, and it just doesn't sound that great. And also when I wore these headphones, especially for a long period of use, they just start to hurt a lot. Like the clamping force is pretty strong, that like it's not a very comfortable headphone to wear. So definitely when I first got them, I was very excited because it's like my first professional pair of headphones that I'm going to be using for editing. So I was very excited, but the more I used it and the more reviews that I saw, it kind of just slowly started to fall apart of just how good these headphones are and just not really looking that great. But after spending a lot more time and doing more research, I found 2 more pairs of headphones that I wanted to compare to the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro MK IIs and the Sony MDR-7506, and I felt like these 2 headphones that I'm getting today are good rivals to these headphones. If not, they could be even better than these headphones. So today we're going to be comparing 4 different headphones. We're going to be comparing 2 closed back headphones, 2 open back headphones, seeing which one is better between the closed back and the open back, and seeing if they are the right pair for you. Let's open up these packages, see what we're getting inside, and we are going to do some authentic, true listening to some music and some editing and seeing how I feel about these headphones. So let's get into it. That is pretty much it when it comes to the unboxing experience between the MDR-M1 and the Sennheiser HD490 Pro. And yeah, right now let us get into the tests between closed back headphones and open back headphones and just give you guys my honest thoughts. So pretty much when it comes to the music that we're going to be listening to, I am playing it off of the application that's known as Tidal. Not listening from straight the MP3s. It is still a streaming service. I should put that disclaimer out there, but it is one of the better places to listen to music for higher quality listening. So yeah, we're gonna be using Tidal, listening to some of my favorite tracks between hip-hop, pop, maybe some R&B, definitely some classical music, and just kind of giving you guys my overall thoughts on what these headphones sound like. So first, we're going to start off with the closed back headphones between the Sony MDR-7506 and the Sony MDR-M1s, and then we will move over to the open back headphones between the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro MK IIs and the Sennheiser HD490s, and overall just giving you guys my thoughts on which closed back headphone sounds better, which open back headphone sounds better, and if they're the right choice for creators. So let's get into the listening experience and test out these headphones. So let's start off our first test with the closed back headphones. So first, I'm going to try out the Sony MDR-7506, listen to a bunch of different songs, and then I'll consistently change it between the 7506 and the MDR-M1, so that way I can get a nice equal listening time between both of these headphones and really just give you guys my honest feedback and my honest thoughts of how I feel between these songs. So first up, 7506. So I listened to the first minute of Travis Scott's Mafia, one of my favorite songs by Travis, love that one. So yeah, so just listen to it on the 7506. Again, they sound very safe, very neutral, very much of that blog flat profile where just like all the different instruments and all the different tonalities of the song are just like all on the same line. Like there's no soundstage, there's no dynamic range between like foreground, midground, and background. Everything just sounds like it's on the same line. So very safe headphone, great for mixing, leveling out your volume, and kind of just knowing where everything is in a leveled environment. So great for that. So now we're switching from the MDR-7506, which I've listened to quite a bit, and trying out the MDR-M1 for the first time, getting my first impressions of what I think of the headphones. So far, when it comes to listening to music on these headphones, because the beginning of this short film has music playing, so listening to music sounds a lot better in here. Again, as I mentioned, dynamic range, depth, separation, a lot better than the M1s compared to the 7506. So definitely so far that depth is very noticeable. I feel like if you're leveling out for the audio, I think the 7506 does a better job, but I think if you're listening to the overall edit and you want to just hear like the overall fidelity of like the voice, because I will say when it comes to the voices in particular, like it sounds very flat and neutral on the 7506. Like there's not much information there, but there's a lot more information on the M1s. Like the M1s, like I can hear like the highness of their voice, I can hear the lowness of their voice, and like it just like it sounds like there's a greater flexibility in the M1s compared to the 7506. Again, I'm hoping I'm making sense, but that's just how I feel between the 7506 and the M1. So I don't know. I mean, they're both great, but I think I'm really starting to like the M1, so I might just end up returning the 7506, because I literally just got the 7506 a couple days back. So it's not like I spent like a crazy amount of time with these headphones. It's not like I know the complete ins and out of it. So the 7506 are still fairly new to me. Again, I mainly just picked them up because this is what the UC School of Cinematic Arts recommends. But I don't know, they may need to update to tell people, hey, you might want to pick up the MDR-M1s. Like these things, again, like I will say, I think Sony has a very similar sound signature between between the 7506 and M1s, like there's definitely something where like when I put both headphones on my head, like I can tell that it's made by the same manufacturer. Like there's something about the sound signature that I'm like, okay, this is what Sony's going for. So they both sound like Sony headphones. They're both great in their own respects. I think my overall thing that I'm saying between the 7506 and the M1 is that if you're someone who mainly wants to level out the volume, really just caring about the overall analytical aspect of just how the leveling sounds, I think the 7506 is the way to go. But I think just overall, for clarity, for depth, for sound recreation, I think the M1s are it. So personally for me, I think I'm going to be choosing the M1. Let us test between the Beyerdynamic 1990 Pro Mark II and the Sennheiser HD 490s. Yeah, so immediately the soundstage are just so much more open. Again, this is kind of the benefit of open back headphones compared to closed back headphones, is that if you want to listen to your audio, whether you're editing it or you're just listening to music and films, again, the amazing thing about open back headphones is that it really feels like you're listening from like studio monitors. It feels like you're listening it from speakers, and it's kind of enveloping the room with audio. So if you really want like that room-like experience, not just something that just feels like it's closed off on your head, but you really want the music and the audio to breathe, then I highly recommend open back headphones. And honestly, ever since I got the DT 1990 Pro Mark IIs, I've just kind of fallen in love with open back headphones because it just recreates that room-like environment. So definitely soundstage sounds great compared to the closed back. I will say the 1990 Pro Mark IIs, when it comes to those vocals, Travis's voice doesn't sound great in these headphones. It feels like his voice is clipping in the high end, and it just does not feel premium or professional. So not a huge fan of how the vocals sound in these headphones, but everything else sounds great. Again, the bass isn't super punchy. It just feels like it's there in the back, like it's not really coming at you. But if you kind of tune your ears to focus more on the bass, then you can hear it, but it's not something that will like immediately come to you. Honestly, comfort wise, I highly prefer the 490 Pro, just the way how they sit on my head compared to the Beyerdynamics. Beyerdynamics, a lot more heavier, a lot more clamp force. So again, when it comes to comfort, definitely a win for the Sennheisers. I will say, for some reason, I'm really liking the Beyerdynamics. I will say, when it comes to vocals on the Sennheisers, it just sounds way more superior compared to the Beyerdynamics. It just sounds cleaner, overall great output. I do think the Sennheisers run a bit more quiet, so for maybe the next couple of tests, I might raise the volume a little bit more on the Sennheisers, so that way it's a bit more equal at level, because I don't know, the Beyerdynamics definitely sound a bit more loud compared to the Sennheisers, but yeah, the Sennheisers definitely feel a bit more quiet. But one thing that I've kind of noticed between the two headphones is like when it comes to everything else besides vocals, I feel like the HD 490s, for some reason, it just sounds a bit more compressed. Like, it sounds like, I don't know, to put it in computer terms, because I don't know how to explain it as an audio person, but it sounds like everything is like in a zip file with the Sennheisers. But when it comes to the Beyerdynamics, it feels like it's like an unzip, like you actually have the file with you. That's kind of the way that I'm putting it in those terms. But interesting, very interesting. Like, neither of them sound like worse or better than the other, but like I think just the overall sound space and the soundstage, I don't know, I'm really preferring the 1990 Pros Mark II so far. So now this is actually making this test even more difficult, because now it's like I don't hate like one or the other headphone, or it's not like I'm like generally leaning towards one headphone in this category, because at least with the closed back headphones, between the MDR-1s and the MDR-7506, like I was pretty much leaning towards the M1s just because it was creating more depth. It sounded more natural, whereas everything just sounded flat on the 7506. But these are like, Beyerdynamics are great for this aspect, but the Sennheisers are better for that aspect. But the weakness on the Sennheisers are the good parts about the 1990s, and the weak parts of the 1990s are the best parts of the Sennheisers. So it's like they both kind of cancel each other out. Like, they're both great headphones for their own thing. I will say, comparing the bass between the Sennheisers and the Beyerdynamics, definitely it's a lot more audible in the Sennheisers. Like, it really comes to you, like you can really hear it. Whereas the bass in the Beyerdynamics and the 1990 Pro Mark IIs, it just feels like it's in the room. It doesn't really come to you. Like, again, it just kind of sits there. So if you want something that kind of comes to you and you can really feel the impact of the bass, Sennheisers are definitely the way to go. If you just want it to be in the room, again, you want to like listen like you're in a room environment, the Beyerdynamics are kind of the way to go. Alright guys, so we are indeed officially back in the studio. So of course you guys saw me hearing these headphones back in LA, but I am here for my spring break, so I decided that I wanted to continue the video and pretty much wrap up the video and give you guys a conclusion to what I think about each of these headphones that we did listen to. So ever since I filmed my test between all 4 headphones, I've been able to spend a lot more time with each pair, really diving into the sound, really seeing how I feel about them, and just giving you guys my honest feedback of how I feel about each pair of headphones. So pretty much to revise, we do have the Sony MDR-7506, which is a classic. It has been around for decades to come. I mean, it's highly used in the music industry and in the film industry, so it's a very well known of headphones. And then moving on to our second pair of closed back headphones, we do have the Sony MDR-M1s, which is pretty much the updated version of the MDR-7506. But of course, it's not super well known just because it's still a bit of a newer model, so a lot of people haven't fully tried on the MDR-M1s just yet, but I'm sure it's going to start catching on and a lot of people are going to want to try out the MDR-M1s. And of course, when it comes to the studio reference open back headphones that we do have the Sennheiser HD490 Pros, and we have the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro Mark II. So obviously, just a great overall set of headphones to have. Of course, I'm not going to be keeping every single one. I am planning to return 2 or return 1, sell 1, depending on the return date that I have, and then keep 2 of them. I'm planning to keep 1 closed back headphone and 1 open back headphone, and I kind of just want to share to you guys what my decision is, why I decided to choose it, and is it a good choice for you as well. Alright, so I'm going to first focus on the closed back pair of headphones that we have, and then we will move into the open back headphones. So pretty much I have spent a lot of time with both of these headphones, the MDR-7506 and the MDR-M1, and the one that I'm deciding to keep is in fact the Sony MDR-M1s, the newer updated version of the original 7506. Personally, for me, the reason why I want to keep them, and honestly, really the biggest reason, is because it creates a bigger soundstage. There's a much larger soundstage. You can really hear the depth of whether it's music or dialogue. There's just so much more detail that you can really extrapolate from the sound. Like, I don't know, like it's hard for me to put it into like audiophile terms. I don't know exactly the terms that you guys use, so I'll use like either like computer terms or film terms just because that's what I'm most aware of. So I'll just try to use that, and hopefully you audiophiles can translate that into whatever, you know, terminology you guys speak in. But personally, I just feel like the soundstage and just the overall dynamics just sound way more nicer in the MDR-M1s. Whereas personally, it's not that the 7506 doesn't sound good. I mean, they do sound great for what they do. But I would say if I could keep the 7506, because obviously I'm only keeping 1, I'm not keeping both. But if I could keep the 7506, I truly do believe this headphone is great for just leveling out different instruments and just different parts of your audio, and really just hearing the volume in general. I feel like it's really good if you just want to figure out where your volume sits in your headphone, and also just the range of the different instrumentals that are in your music. So I'll just more so focus on the music part rather than like the film part, because obviously film is like music, dialogue, ambiance, SFX, all the different types of stuff. But especially when it comes to music, kind of just breaking it down into the different instrumentals, I feel like the MDR-7506 does a really great job of just kind of giving you where everything is sitting at, and it's at a very flat line. It doesn't give you that dynamic soundstage, which, you know, you can hear like the foreground, midground, and background. Like all the details are just like on one level. Whereas the MDR-M1, you know, you can hear the foreground, you can hear the midground, and you can hear the background, and like it really creates a much more dynamic and a much more, I just use the term soundstage a lot. Like it really just feels like you're in a much more open environment and you're actually like listening to music live. So that's how I feel about the M1s compared to the 7506. So just to keep it brief, that's pretty much the biggest reason why I like the MDR-M1s compared to the 7506. But again, given the price tag, the 7506 is still such a great headphone to go for, and there's still a very good reason as to why a lot of studios still use the 7506, and of course even the university that I'm attending, USC, for the film school, there's a good reason why they still recommend these headphones. That is pretty much my thoughts on the closed back pair of headphones, and now we will move on to the open back pair of headphones. Alright, so when it comes to the open back pair of headphones, this was actually a much tougher call to see which one I'm going to be choosing, just because they both have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they're both very different in their strengths and weaknesses. So the thing is that the DT1990 Pro Mark II by Beyerdynamic is technically a more expensive headphone than the Sennheiser. But personally for me, I'm just a huge fan of Sennheiser. Like literally on my C400, I do have the Sennheiser MKII-416 attached to it. Again, it is a true industry mic. A lot of people like to use it. Sounds great, works great. So Sennheiser does make reliable audio products, so obviously a huge fan of the brand. But personally, ever since I got the Beyerdynamic DT1990 Pro Mark IIs, I've definitely grown pretty attached to the sound, and I've definitely been enjoying it. But the reviews for the Beyerdynamics have been very kind of iffy, kind of like 50-50. Some people enjoy them, some people don't. And that's mainly because of the treble and the high pitch noise that the headphones reproduce. It feels like the audio is getting clipped, especially when it comes to dialogue, which just doesn't sound great. So especially if you are working with a lot of heavy dialogue content, or if you are, mixing and mastering music that has dialogue in it, it is kind of tough to hear it from this pair of headphones compared to the Sennheisers. So obviously the weakness for the Beyerdynamics is the treble, but the strength for the Beyerdynamics is honestly everything else. Like the bass sounds really good. It's not like, the bass isn't super punchy, as I mentioned in the test that I did back in LA. So it's not like a really punchy bass, but you can really feel it kind of in the environment. Again, it's a very wide open soundstage. I will say, I think the 1990 Pro has a much wider soundstage compared to the Sennheiser. Sennheiser does also have a wide soundstage, but I feel like the 1990 Pro Mark IIs are quite a bit wider. The Sennheisers are super lightweight. The HD490s like literally hardly feel like anything. The ear pads are super easy to take off and take on. It does come with 2 pair of ear pads. It comes with their producing pads, which are this nice velvet kind of velour material, and they do have the mixing pads, which is kind of like a denim-like fabric that you can swap on and off on a pair of headphones, so you can kind of get different sounds from the Sennheiser HD490 Pros. Because I will say, I feel like the treble kind of accentuates a bit more when you have the mixing pads on, whereas the bass feels a lot more warm when you have the producing pads. So they do give you quite a bit different sound signatures between the ear pads that you're using. So besides the build quality of the HD490 Pros, when it comes to the sound, one, they're not the best sounding pair of headphones that I've ever heard, but when it comes to the treble of these headphones, they're definitely a lot better than the Beyerdynamics, and I will say just the overall sound sounds great. Not the best, but I mean, given the price tag and what you're getting, I feel like it is pretty solid of what you're getting. I feel like it's a really good pair of headphones. But when it comes to the Sennheiser HD490 Pros, really my only negative that I wanted to point out with the headphone is that they sound a bit quiet. I just feel like when it comes to the volume of them, it just lacks quite a bit compared to the other 3 headphones that we've been reviewing. I just feel like I really have to turn up the volume in order to like really hear the sound and the detail from this headphone. So it's not like it gets to a point where it just sounds really muffled, but like I literally have to put it like on full volume to like really hear it. So I don't know if it's just the pair that I got. I did test out another pair of the HD490 Pros. I did get another one just to see if I had a defective model, but it was pretty much the exact same sound. So pretty much if you do run this headphone from a MacBook Pro or even your computer and you're not using a DAC or an amp, it's just gonna sound a bit quiet. So definitely, I feel like for the Sennheiser HD490 Pros, I would highly recommend it to pair with an amp, so that way you can get a bit more gain in the volume, so that way it just sounds a bit more full. So that's really my only negative about it. So it can be fixed with the right components. Ultimately, when it comes to the headphone that I'm choosing between either the HD490 Pros and the Beyerdynamic DT1990 Pro Mark IIs, the headphone that I'm keeping is tough. But the headphone that I am keeping is in fact the Sennheiser HD490 Pros. Again, it is very annoying to hear the clipping in the dialogue in the Beyerdynamic DT1990 Pro Mark IIs. Again, it's one of the biggest things that Beyerdynamic has not fixed with their headphones, especially since I've seen reviews for their previous versions, especially even the original 1990 Pros. It also had that same issue where the trebles just kind of get clipped and it's just not very clear. And especially if you are a film editor or even in music and you are working with a lot of dialogue, it just gets very annoying to hear that clipping in the high and in the trebles. So that's probably the biggest reason why I'm turning down the DT1990 Pros and why I'm going to the Sennheiser. Now again, with the Sennheiser, it is a bit quiet, but if I decide to get an amp for the HD490 Pros, then I can get a louder and more full sound from the headphones. So it's an easy fix compared to something where literally Beyerdynamic would have to again focus on creating another pair of 1990 Pro Mark IIIs or something to hopefully fix the treble. And so when it comes to the final two headphones that we're keeping, for our closed back option, we do have the Sony MDR-M1s, and for the open back, we do have the Sennheiser HD 490 Pros. And with that, that is going to do for us on today's video of choosing our studio reference headphones that we are planning to use for video editing and just filmmaking in general. And if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding these headphones, or if you guys have any headphone recommendations you want to give me, I'd highly recommend them to leave them in the comments down below, and I would definitely enjoy to check them out. Again, I'm very much interested into audio equipment, especially when it comes to microphones, headphones, and speakers. So obviously I don't make too much audio content, but if you guys would like me to make audio content, more than happy to do so. And yeah, with that, that's going to do it for us on today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Take it easy. Peace.